Hi everyone. All right, so the theme of today's lesson is candy. And we're basing this on the book Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And this is a really fun lesson. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, as you all know, is a fantastic story about a boy that wins the golden ticket and gets to go to a fantastic chocolate factory. And one of the coolest things about this project I like is that it focuses on candy, which everybody loves. Okay, so here's what you'll need for this project is you are going to need a white piece of paper, and you'll need a white crayon. It really helps to have a white crayon. You could use a white colored pencil. If you don't have either one of those, that's fine. I have a couple different colors right here. I have like 8 different colors of bright colored pencils. However many you want to use is fine, but I like to do kind of bright colors for our lollipop that we're going to be drawing. And you can use either a Sharpie or any kind of black marker that you have. And I have a pencil. I also have here, this is going to be my template for drawing. So all I'm going to need is to draw a circle shape to start with. So let's do that. So I can either use the top of my container, or I can use this. So let's do this. We're going to draw our lollipop. So we're going to start by taking our pencil, and as you can see in the finished product, you want your circle to be kind of near the top because we want enough room for the lollipop stick. Okay, so I'm going to take my circle, put it on here, and I'm going to trace my circle with my pencil. All right, perfect. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my stem. So I'm not even going to use a template for that. You could use a ruler if you wanted to, but you don't have to. So I'm going to draw really carefully. I'm going to try to draw a lollipop stick. There we go. All right. And you are almost finished drawing the lollipop. Now, our lollipop is going to be one of those swirl lollipops. So what we're going to do is we need to have a line that's going to start from the outside and go in, and swirl around in a continuous line pattern. So we can pick kind of anywhere we want to start on our lollipop. I'm going to start from the bottom. And my goal is to try to just do it just by eye, which means just kind of like looking to make sure that I'm doing it about as evenly as I can. And I'm going around and I'm going to swirl it in. So as I'm going, I'm getting smaller and smaller. And there's really no template to do this. You just kind of do it until you end. All right, there we go. And now all we have to do is take our Sharpie or any black marker you have, and we're going to trace over every line that we just did. So let me do that. And I'm going to go very, very carefully and slowly. The slower you go, the more you make sure that you are tracing right over those pencil lines. There we go. And you can always turn your paper. There we go. Down. All right. Now I'm going to trace my swirl. All right. Here we go. Trace my swirl in there. Perfect. Okay. Now I don't need my Sharpie right now anymore. But what I'm going to do to get that really nice look of having the lollipop where it's all sectioned out like that, and to kind of give it a little bit more of a 3-dimensional look, is I'm going to take my white crayon and I'm going to draw some curved lines. Now I have to be careful when I do this because, as I tell you guys in class, when you draw with a white crayon on white paper, it's hard to see. So you kind of have to just do it from memory and kind of knowing what you've already done. So we want to try to space our swirls a little bit like evenly apart. So I'm going to, right here, or our curved lines. So I'm just going to go here and I'm going to draw some curved lines. And remember, you're doing it in a slight rainbow pattern. Everything is curved. And I'm going over it a couple times. As you can see, I'm not just drawing it once and moving on. I'm kind of tracing over it a couple times. The harder you draw with this, the easier it's going to be, because we're going to be using some colored pencils to color it in. All right. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to draw my white lines. And when you do it, you'll be able to see it slightly in here. Now, all my curves are going the same direction. So I'm starting with, like, I'm always going the same direction. I'm not making my curve go the other way. So once you kind of get going with it, you'll know. Curve. All right, we're almost finished. This is a fairly simple project, but it ends up looking really cool and pairs really well with the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory book theme. Okay, so now I have my little curves done. And what I'm going to do is I am going to take some colors. It doesn't matter what color you start with, and we're going to start coloring in each section. Okay, I'll be right back and I'll show you where we are. Okay, so what I've done is I've started to color in my lollipop in a pattern. Now, I want to point out two things. One, where I have drawn over to make these curved lines in white crayon, your colored pencil will kind of naturally stop there. I'm not drawing really, really hard or coloring really hard. I'm just kind of going lightly, but I'm going carefully. And see how it sort of stops right there. If I color really hard, it might go over that crayon line, but you don't really want it to. So I'm going over, and here's another thing that I'm doing. I'm going in a pattern, so I'm remembering. I did, red, orange, blue, purple, green, and then I'm gonna continue that pattern so it looks really good. So then all I have to do is look back over here. Okay, I did green, now I'm gonna do green. And what I'm doing is I'm doing directional shading, which I always talk about as being really important. It ends up getting a really nice look at the end, meaning I'm always coloring this way. I'm just moving my paper around to make it easier for myself, as opposed to coloring up and down, because we want our lollipop to look like it's really smooth and going into a nice spiral pattern. Okay, so I did my green, and then I'm gonna move into my pink. And again, I'm not pressing very hard. I think it's easier and you get a little more longevity out of it instead of having your hand cramp up and get really sore, which happens if you're coloring too hard. Okay, so I'm coloring here. And my lollipop is just gonna spiral right around. And I'm just remembering which colors are in my pattern. All right, and when we come back, we'll get to the lollipop stick. Okay, so now I've used all my colored pencil colors in a pattern and spiraled all around, and I've directionally colored, so coloring in the same direction, which really makes a nice soft look for my lollipop. Okay, now I'm gonna work on the stick of my lollipop. So I have two different colors. I have like a darker brown and a lighter brown. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with my lighter brown, and again, in the same direction. I'm gonna start at the top and I'm gonna color straight down, go all the way down. This is almost like a golden brown. And then what I'm gonna do is I really wanna get the look of it being a little more three-dimensional. So I'm gonna have a shadow going around the side, but what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna start here, and I'm going to make it a little bit darker on this side and sort of fading in lighter and lighter. I'm coloring a little harder on one side and kind of fading it into that center. All right, and it's sort of giving the illusion of it being a little more three-dimensional than just a flat lollipop stick. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna switch over to my pencil, and we're gonna create a shadow behind our lollipop to kind of make it look like it's popping out a little bit. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start at maybe not the tippy top of my lollipop, but a little bit down from that. And coming out just a little bit, I'm gonna start really lightly with my pencil and really trace around that lollipop circle. And then I'm gonna come straight down. I'm gonna stop right about there, a little bit up from that. And then I'm gonna do exactly the same thing I did with this. Using my pencil instead of a black, instead of a marker or instead of a black colored pencil, I'm just gonna shade in here. I'm doing it kind of quickly, but you can work really carefully and as slow as you want. And I'm going very, very, very carefully up and around my lollipop. Being careful to kind of stay. That's why I drew my line nice and light. So I used a very, very, very light sketch line up here. I come out from here. I'm gonna go around. Around. All right, perfect. Now, and the darker you get closer to your lollipop, the more it will look like it's really popping out like that. All right, so now we have our lollipop and it looks like it's more three-dimensional, like it's being lifted off that page instead of just sitting flat. All right, now for the last step, what you can do is if you have watercolors at home, you can choose a watercolor color, maybe a color that you haven't used at all for your lollipop, and shade in the background. You can keep it white if you want as well. I'll show you a couple examples. This one's my example, and over here I'll pop in some examples from some past years. So here we have a red background. Here we have a yellow background. Here we have a purple background. And here we have a green background. So it kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of some different ideas of what a watercolor background could look like. All right, have fun with your Charlie and the Chocolate Factory theme lollipop. See you next time.